Let's talk to Chris in Connecticut.
Sounds good.
Chris, welcome to the show. You want to talk about when having civil conversations become harmful, and I'm here for it.
Chris?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Yes, so I think especially after that second caller, I think that this may be a bit less of like a toothy conversation. Just because I think you kind of showed almost like the answer to my question, but just to have it anyway, since you're nice enough to have me on. So essentially, I've been thinking a lot about a lot of the political debates that we're having in real time right now, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some of the setbacks that we are having, kind of what you guys were talking about, where you feel the need to join this like new pseudo-religious organization just to maintain your own rights. Mm-hmm. And how I think a lot of that is coming from this like kind of civility politics, where it seems almost especially lopsided as well, that we tend to talk about these things and feel the need to empathize and coddle people who are specifically causing, like pushing these harmful ideas and then acting like this is still all within like the bounds and realm of like reasonable discussion. Yeah. So obviously we're talking about the trans thing where like for a long time, people have just been kind of talking specifically about trans women and women's spaces and sports and things like that as being threats to cis women. I remember when I was first kind of leaving my faith around like 2013 or 14 or so, and some prominent atheist communicators were making statements like, I just lament the fact that we can't have civil discussions about whether, racial profiling and things like that are potentially good things. This was happening during, the whole like New York City's like stop and frisk thing. Yep. So as a Black person, that definitely not, I take very kindly to that. And it seems like the way that we're encouraged to have these conversations really is predicated on this, I think, ahistorical idea that, bad ideas will be beat out by better ideas, which we have not seen in history or even right the crap now. Yep. And it's just, I'm wondering, how do we navigate these conversations in a way that isn't just, I think, in the minds of some of these people who hold these beliefs, reinforcing the idea that they are valid and deserving of rational discussion, and just pushing them more towards the point where we're now seeing, anti-trans bills and other things like that that are literally bringing up these topics that everyone was trying to normalize like 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, Chris, this is such a big conversation, and I could talk about this for like 4 hours. What I do want to bring up is you are absolutely right. Civility politics is a very effective way of kind of implementing a chilling effect, right? And policing other people's emotional reactions to reactions that are fully reasonable to have. And the way that they do this, the way that they get away with this a lot of the time, and I've tried to do my best to kind of break this down for myself, is they require on the front end, unless we are actively calling for somebody's harm, then we are not being bigots, transphobes, racists, what have you, right? Like, we have to actively be saying, hello, my name is X and I am a transphobe, in order to be considered one. But then on the back end, they validate each other's dog whistles to the point where they understand that everything that they're saying is a dog whistle with a deeper meaning. But those dog whistles are so slippery that they can act for the general public like the other person is overreacting, right? I just think that sex and gender, I just think that sex is real, right? I think biology is real. Like, for the person who is saying that, they are, to the public, saying something very reasonable. So when people understand that dog whistle and react to that in the way that they should, which is, okay, I understand that what this is a dog whistle against trans people, and you are trying to actively, advocate for our harm. Oh, I'm just saying biology is real. Look at these people who like don't think biology is real. Why are they so upset? Right? So it's that dog whistling slipperiness that really helps that civility politics come into play. And for me, the thing I found is most effective, and we saw it on the call with Jay, is to directly address why something is harmful by referencing what that dog whistle is actually saying and how it ties in, right?
And call it out, yeah.
Right. So you tell me I can't love because I'm an atheist. That's disrespectful. Oh, why? Well, because, and this is something both of us understand, the idea that atheists are somehow morally or ethically deficient is a key reason why they are discriminated against and why they are feared and why they are stigmatized. So to validate that, even with a simple sentence like, you don't understand unconditional love, is to evoke all of that baggage. And if you didn't mean to do that, cool, we can talk about it. But more often than not, you do. So really not being afraid to dive right in and call out a dog whistle, not just saying, this is a dog whistle, but also saying, hey, here is what this means historically. Here's how people use it. Here's what it's inferring. That's what I have a problem with. Not how you're phrasing it at the top. All that deep shit at the bottom.
And really what's frustrating is that is so much work to do. And
yes.
What people will do online is they'll look at that and go,
yeah,
well, shit, that's not my job. I'm just going to jump to the end because I already know what the story is and call you out and call you a piece of shit. And it's like, whoa, okay. So that's when you get called overreacted. Do you know what sea lioning is?
What is?
Sea lioning?
No, I've never heard that before.
You should look it up. It originates with a comic. It's just an asshole sea lion that just wants to have the conversation. And the way it gets put is it perfectly describes the kind of method and format that a lot of those take.
Right. Why are you so mad? I'm just asking a question. And they're like in the bed with you or like at your dinner table, like, but I want to talk about this thing.
Forcing themselves in your house, right?
Yeah.
I wish that we would use that more often because what a wonderful way to describe it. If somebody did that, I'd love to be like, you're sea lining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, what are your thoughts? I know we just did a lot of talking.
So definitely those are a lot of things that I've tried in the past. I've never heard of sea lining before, but I think that's definitely something I will look into. I think my frustration is even when you do kind of all these things and try to break it down, I think like even more so than the people who are potentially pushing for harmful things, I think what I was kind of thinking about with this call was actually more people who kind of posture themselves as allies, right? Who really give in to this civility politics and this sort of like, oh, I'm just asking questions type of framing. Because especially I think in the atheist larger community, we're still, starting to, but definitely when I lost my faith, there was a lot of kind of, as much as I hate this word, scientism, where it's like, as real as that statement can be, where people kind of try to think, oh, I dropped faith, I dropped religion, therefore I am a purely logical robot, and the only things that exist are just like logic and science.
Right.
Like anything that's you like sociology doesn't exist. Like that kind of thing, where when you try to explain things like what the hell is a dog whistle, how is you saying this thing that sure is designed on the surface to not be an issue, is really creating a lot of deeper sorts of resentments and other things, right?
Yeah.
And you can go through explain all that, and then they look at you like you're freaking insane because like, no, you're reading too much into it. I'm literally just saying blah blah blah.
And you know what? It's even more like intricate and complicated in our niche. You know, if you look in this specific, in atheist communities, right, especially on the intellectual dark web, those kinds of folks.
Oh God.
Well, here's the thing: is you have people who come out of you have people who've come out of religion. and they want to ask questions. I want to ask, what is faith? And, you get shut down and you're like, oh, you don't want to talk about it because you don't have a good answer. And so you get used to this and you set it up as kind of an alarm bell in your head that anytime somebody acts that way, they're trying to hide something. And so it triggers them. It is triggering because they don't understand that there's other motivation here, right? The motivation for somebody who's religious, who is not wanting to talk about faith, is they don't have good answers. The reason why it winds up getting shut down or somebody jumps to the end of it on these kinds of conversations is because you are implicitly dehumanizing another group. And that implicit dehumanization it's not stopping the conversation. You're just not having a good conversation. The conversation shouldn't be, do you exist? Do you deserve rights? Should you be treated equally with other humans? Do you deserve, love and marriage or any of those things? No. First, I just want to have the conversation about whether or not you exist or whether or not I can deny core fundamental parts of your identity, right? It's not about an ontological God. It's about each individual's personal experience and identity of themselves. And so you have this trigger that pops up that these people who've come out of religion hear and feel, and they go, oh, no, there's something wrong when it comes to this debate. And that's why it is so important for communicators, people who are up for having the discussion, to have the discussion. For those of you who are having that discussion, we salute you. We understand for those people who don't want to, don't have to, or are burned out. Like, that is totally understood. But we do want to say that we appreciate those people who are putting themselves out there, because that is the labor that needs to be done to get through to people who do need an explanation. And so I'm sorry, I went on a rant.
That was awesome. That was cool. No,
that's a good rant.
Hey!
No, I think you're spot on, Eric. I think that it's a trigger response to something that is not hard science, and anything in that category is necessarily suspect.
But you can understand why it would hit that trigger.
Right, because it was misused against them and they are being reactive, and that's understandable. But the danger comes from what Chris is explaining, which is that perspective of, this isn't something for me to get over and analyze. This is just me being right. And that's why deconversion and deconstruction are two different things. Babies and gentle thems. Because there's that instinct to latch on to hard science, to say, well, anything that it can't be replicated in a lab doesn't exist. It just is replicating the grabbing onto of the Bible.
Can I actually
So
I actually have one last thought on that,
Yeah,
and then
go for
I'll
it,
let
Chris.
you have to go to any of the callers. Well, Eric, you can go first.
Oh, no, I want to put a pin in it, Chris, because I want to give you the opportunity to respond.
Yeah.
Okay, so with me, and I've been thinking about this a while too, as I was kind of going through my deconstruction, because I guess I really hate that scientism word, but I was kind of going to, college to study, biology and do all that while I left my faith. So I kind of gravitated towards what he just said, where I remember explicitly doing that because in the way that we are educating the general populace in America, there is no philosophical education.
Yeah.
Like, the only exposure you have to philosophy is usually through your church. So then I made, I think, a very common error by thinking, okay, philosophy is really just apologetics, and that all sounds like bullshit. So of course I want to just throw out philosophy.
Oh, that is a beautiful observation.
Sociology and other things are like.
Hold on.
I think.
I was making an adjustment and I missed that last sentence. Could you please say it again? I missed it.
Oh my gosh. Chris, correct me if I'm misstating this, but the idea that we do not teach philosophy or that kind of ontological thought process or epistemology in the classroom, the only place we see that is at church. And so of course people are going to make that connection.
Oh.
Right?
True.
Damn.
Exactly.
I love it, Chris.
Yeah. Chris, thank you.
And I think that plays into also kind of the beginning of the conversation with why it's still so triggering for people to see like similar structures when it comes to an entirely different category of conversations, like not ontological arguments of whether God exists, but just like arguments about ethics, morality, and just like fucking personal freedoms, and then say, oh, similar patterns are happening here. I have no basis to dissect these two categories, therefore, I'm going to react the same way to them. And I think a lot of these issues can be solved by just, not just because it's never that simple, but really by giving people more of an understanding of these things that our society kind of neglects. Things like philosophy, sociology, all of these other ways of looking at the world.
Chris, you have given us the thing V and I are going to talk about for the next 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is awesome. I'm making ridiculous amounts of notes right now. Chris, that was beautifully put. Such a good observation. And honestly, this kind of conversation needs to happen more. We need to be asking, why are we being held to a standard of civility that the other side is not? And why is it that we are clinging so tightly to it and so tightly to what keeps us comfortable, especially in the face of so many different groups facing so many struggles right now? Chris, thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, thanks for taking my...
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's fine.
Wow. Yeah, that is well said. I think the only caveat that I would kind of put in there is when it comes to soft sciences that are talked about with inductive reasoning, right? If you are given a psychological diagnosis, is because you match, these criteria.
Right.
And because of that, you need to have the right tool for the job. And if you are requiring, a methodological tool that doesn't belong there, then you're not applying the correct tool for the job. So I think the idea that, I don't know, like the whole scientism, the way that it was talked about in this conversation, it made me feel like it's almost a stunted understanding of what the methodology needs to be to understand different things.
Yeah.
And that misunderstanding of the methodology causes that statement that you made, which is, not everything can be produced in a lab.
Right.
But the rest of that is because we don't go to a lab to study that. It's still studyable. It's still verifiable in different ways. We can absolutely verify and study and prove lots of things as long as we're using the right tools for the job.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly.
I just want to clarify that because we should not give people who would use that statement dishonestly that ammo.
Yeah.
And I think that people who would get that ammo, you can't replicate God in a Bible? Or in a lab.
You can do that very well in a Bible.
Thank you. You can't replicate, God in a beaker, in a lab. What they're missing is this is not an attempt to completely invalidate methodological naturalism or, a methodological approach. What it means is I don't know the correct tool for this. And so instead of trying to find it, I'm going to pretend like none exists, so I'm right. And they don't deserve to have that tool. Anyway, that's all I have to add on that.
We're gonna have this conversation for a while after, I can tell.
I know, right?